Hey guys, today I will be updating you guys on the Georgia runoff races once again, as right now these races are really big. I mean, they are going to decide the makeup of the Senate. And today I want to take a look at the fundraising numbers for all four candidates in the runoff election on January 5th. So before we get further into this video, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not. We'll be updating you guys on the race a lot more over there. The link is at the very top of the description below. So taking a look at our Senate map right now, basically what you'll see is that these two races, the only ones left, and they're going to decide the makeup of the Senate. If Democrats win both, they win the Senate. Because Kamala Harris, the now vice president-elect, and will become the vice president, she will break all the ties if there is a 50-50 vote, and she will of course break it in favor of her party. And then for the Republicans, they have to win just one seat to hold on to the majority in the Senate, with the Democrats winning 49. Now, I think that this is a very likely scenario where Republicans win one and Democrats win one, but I could definitely see a full sweep by either party as of right now. It's still pretty early. We have a little bit less than a month to go, but this race could definitely change quite a bit in the next couple of days. As we saw yesterday, polling numbers are looking very good for both Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, and the polls in Georgia, they have really been much better than the polls you've seen in other states. I mean, in the Midwest, the polls have just been consistently way off in terms of the pollsters' ability to predict which voters will vote and which will not, demographically. But in the state of Georgia, it has been pretty strong. The polling average versus the actual results on the presidential level between Biden and Trump was off by less than 1%. And, for a polling average, that is very, very good. This race right now, definitely, it's not in the bag for either party. Both parties have a lot more work to do if they want to retain these two seats. And the reason why these two seats have become so important to both the Democrats and the Republicans, but Democrats even more if they want to be able to push through Joe Biden's agenda, is because Democrats had a very, very disappointing night in terms of the Senate elections on election night. They might have won the presidency, but their House and Senate results, they were pretty disappointing. Especially in the Senate, you saw that Sarah Gideon was basically expected to win this race by everyone, but she lost this race by over 8%, 8.6% to incumbent Susan Collins, who has been a senator for, I believe this is her fourth consecutive win, or fifth, I'm not really too sure, but she's been serving the Senate for a very, very long time, and she was able to win yet another term. She is one of probably one of the most bipartisan senators. She might be Republican, but she has voted Democrat on a large number of bills. And then North Carolina, Tom Tillis was able to defeat Democrat Cal Cunningham, and this was really the big disappointment. Cunningham led by over 10 points in the summer. I mean, 10 points? It might have dropped to 5-6%, but he was still leading the polls here, and that drop was mainly because of his marital affair that he had with the secretary, I believe, and that led to his wife basically just divorcing him. And I think that he has let down the entire Democratic Party for doing something that was so selfish of him to do, right before this very consequential election. And that definitely did lose Cal Cunningham the race. Even if it didn't, he probably would have done a lot better if that did not happen. He was still able to win 46.9% of the vote, which is pretty surprising, but still quite a bit worse than Joe Biden's 1.3% margin. And yeah, he just disappointed the entire Democratic Party, in my opinion. Even though Biden lost this race, I think Cal Cunningham, he was expected to do much better than Joe Biden in the state of North Carolina before that affair. Another race that was supposed to be close, Iowa, Joni Ernst destroyed Tracy Greenfield by 6.6%. This was expected to be a very, very close race. Montana too, Steve Daines won by 10%. This might be a red state on the presidential level, but on the Senate level, this is more of a bipartisan state. As you can see, there is still a Democratic senator in the state of Montana, with Steve Daines winning his re-election. So that was really disappointing for Democrats. They were able to flip Colorado by a pretty strong margin. John Hickenlooper defeating Cory Gardner, and Mark Kelly defeating incumbent Martha McSally in the state of Arizona, with Kirsten Sinema's win there in 2018. The state of Arizona is now fully blue for the first time since, I believe, Harry Truman, which is very, very surprising. The state of Georgia, these are the races that everyone's talking about. Alabama flipped for the Republican Party, Tommy Tuberville destroying Doug Jones by over 20 20 percentage points. I mean, Texas was actually closer than expected. I mean, it was a less than 10% margin for John Cornyn. I definitely expected it to be a little bit larger for him, considering how Republicans did much better than the polls in other states, but it was still a strong 10% margin. Georgia and the Georgia special election, they were pretty close, especially between Perdue and Ossoff. Ossoff definitely still has a chance at winning. So now let's take a look at the fundraising numbers between these two candidates. What you'll see is that this race has been very expensive. I mean, these are the numbers that were released from November 3rd to the 23rd in terms of fundraising between Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff. I mean, these numbers, they are staggering. They really, I mean, $167 million in one state. I believe this is a record for the most amount of money raised, in one state for a Senate election. So this really is a pretty big deal. All right, I can't seem to zoom in correctly, but yeah, so that is a huge amount of money for Warnock, and I'm surprised that Warnock actually outraised Jon Ossoff, but David Perdue did outraise Kelly Loeffler. So if you take a look at when they were able to raise the most amount of money right here, you will see that they had spikes in September and October, with Ossoff gaining a lot more in October than Raphael Warnock, just because they knew that Warnock was not going to win his race outright, because it was a three-way race between him, Loeffler, and Republican Doug Collins. However, after the election, the numbers skyrocketed for Ossoff, Warnock, Perdue, and Loeffler, but a lot more for Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. And it slowed down since then, but still they're raising huge amounts of money. I mean, over $1 million a day. That is a huge amount. Loeffler, Perdue basically raising the same amount at this point in time. Same thing with Ossoff and Warnock. So really, Democrats are doing much better with fundraising in this race. As you can clearly see, they've raised over $111 million combined, $112 million over that, and the total is $167. So really, Democrats are not surprisingly destroying the Republicans in terms of fundraising, but fundraising is not going to decide an election, because everybody saw that with the election in the state of South Carolina, Jamie Harrison got destroyed by Lindsey Graham. Although Lindsey Graham was one of the most unpopular senators in the entire country, he was able to raise $60 million in 1 month from South Carolina. The previous record was held by Beto O'Rourke from Texas. I mean, Texas is a much bigger state than South Carolina. So from South Carolina, Jamie Harrison was able to break the fundraising record, by a lot, and he still lost this race by over 10.3% in favor of one of the most unpopular senators in the entire country, Lindsey Graham. He was very worried about losing his seat. I mean, he was really worried about it, but he was able to win by 10%, and I think that's going to just boost, his ego in terms of what he can actually get away with, because Lindsey Graham, he was a very strong critic of Donald Trump, and then he joined him after he won the presidency, because I'm sure he did that because he saw, how it would give him, an advantage if he were to line up with the party leader that South Carolina does support. So Lindsey Graham definitely made a good choice there, although he did quite a bit worse than Donald Trump there in the state of South Carolina. He was still able to win his race by a much stronger margin than previously expected. So the state of South Carolina shows that just because you're raising more money doesn't mean you're actually going to win the state. And that's why right now the betting odds are not in favor of Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff. David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, according to money, still has the higher chance of winning the race. So taking a look at where the candidates are getting their money, Democrats from every state are donating to Georgia. You'll see numbers from every single state in the country. The largest, of course, is California, then followed by New York, a considerable amount from Washington, actually, Massachusetts as well, Pennsylvania, Texas, Florida. These are really the main states, while for the Republicans here in this race, you will see that a lot of the money is coming from California as well, 6.8 million to the 25 million from California for the Democrats, while you still see considerable amounts from Texas, 6.6 million, Florida, 6.5 million. So fundraising is pretty high in, for both these races, but definitely a lot stronger for the Democrats here than the Republicans. Sorry about that. So yeah, the race right now, Democrats are definitely doing very well based off of just the fundraising numbers. Although, of course, they are not going to decide the races. Today, I also wanted to take a look at the betting odds. A lot of different interesting betting markets for the race, and this is just the Senate special election runoff. Right now, Kelly Loeffler at 59 cents per share to Raphael Warnock at 41. You'll see that the Democrats' chances here are increasing, and you'll see, he is right now at 41, has increased, or not increased, but there's been no change today, while Kelly Loeffler has dropped to 59 from the 61 that she was at yesterday. So the chances here are getting a little bit closer over time. The regular Georgia Senate race right now is currently at 64 to 38. If we take a look at this larger graph, you'll see, of course, on the 3rd, David Perdue was at 50%, but then afterwards, Jon Ossoff was able to, get David Perdue under 50% as more votes were counted, and his chances were pretty high early on in the race, but right now it has definitely got quite a bit closer. And 38%, that's much higher than Donald Trump's chances of winning the 2016 election based off of betting odds. So really, he has a very good chance still at winning this race. And then, taking a look at something else. I'm going to take a look at some of these other interesting markets. The margin in the Georgia Senate special runoff election. Let's take a look what the numbers are. Basically, it's going to be a close race according to the betting odds. You have Warnock under 1%, Loeffler under 1%, that's 13-14 cents. Loeffler 1 to 2%, 13, Loeffler 2 to 3%, 10. You also have Warnock by 1 and 2%, and Warnock by 2 to 3%. Also some pretty high numbers there. So really, it is going to be a very, very close race according to all of these betting numbers that we are seeing right now. Let's take a look at the regular Senate runoff margin. Same thing here. You have Ossoff by under 1%, that's at 14. Perdue by 1 to 2 at 15. That's the margin that we saw on election night. Perdue by under 1%, 13 cents. Ossoff by 1 to 2%, 11 cents. So this race, it's going to be close. I believe there's one for Turnout as well, if I can just find that. Turnout. As you can see, the highest share for Turnout right now is 4.2 to 4.4 million votes in the runoff election right now. 22 cents per share. 3.8 million to 4 million, that's 12. 4 million to 4.2 million, that is currently at 16 cents. So really, I think it'll either be 3.8 million to 4 million or 4 million to 4.2 million. It's definitely not going to be 5 million or more. It was around 4.8 to 5 million, I believe, in the presidential election, which was basically the same as the Senate elections on election night. So definitely it's not going to be that high. Runoff elections always have lower turnout. So right now, I would say that these two are the highest of occurring as of right now. 22.16. And then that 12-cent share for 3.8 to 4. So this is all pretty interesting to take a look at. Most votes in the Georgia Senate runoffs. David Perdue, of course, leading, then Raphael Warnock, then Jon Ossoff, and then Kelly Loeffler. So according to this, it would seem as if Warnock would defeat Kelly Loeffler, if I'm not mistaken there, because that would mean, so Warnock, if he was to win more votes, then, this is just based off who would win the most. So really, you're not seeing that Warnock would defeat Loeffler, but Warnock has a higher chance of winning the most votes, which means that he would defeat Loeffler, or there are those who think that Perdue would win the most, but Loeffler would win the second most. So really, this doesn't show that people think that Warnock is going to win the most, but it's surprising that he's up there, number 2, and Loeffler is down there at the bottom, which actually I think is pretty reasonable. I think that Warnock would probably do better than Ossoff, definitely. I think that because, Warnock is running against the weaker candidate, being Kelly Loeffler. So really, that's honestly all of it. I want to take a look at this final one. Ossoff would win the least amount of runoff votes, and then this is basically a little bit of the exact opposite, but Kelly Loeffler is expected to win more than Jon Ossoff in this for the fewest runoff votes, and then, it's Raphael Warnock and then David Perdue at the bottom. So really, right now, the betting odds are in favor of David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, but definitely they don't have this race in the bag because, you can see that the Democrats still have a very, very strong chance. They still have a 4 in 10 chance in both races of winning, and that's just a little bit less than 50%, which is pretty strong for them in a state like Georgia. And then, the fundraising right now, Democrats are killing it, and they're probably going to do very, very well just, with their money. So we'll see what happens in the race. The Electoral College is going to vote tomorrow, so make sure, you watch that. I want to see how many faithless electors there are. I'm not worried about there being the 37 that Trump needs to vote for him and not Joe Biden. That's not going to happen. But so yeah, tomorrow the Electoral College is going to vote, and that's going to certify the results, and then Joe Biden will have officially won the 2020 election. So I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment if you have not. Join my Discord server if you haven't either. The link is at the very top of the description below, and I will see all of you guys in the next video.